yet. Looks like you're ready to start streaming. All right, so I can go live.
Yeah,
Wow.
and just remember that you have that little delay. There's like a 30-second delay.
Yes. Oh, and we are live. It looks like that was fast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to State of Angular Ecosystem. We are very excited that everyone is here today. We have such a great set of amazing panelists, and I'm going to go ahead and share my slides really quickly. Let's see. All right. Hopefully everyone can see my slides right there. All right. So today we are talking to a bunch of really amazing people. We have just amazing things to talk about. I mean, just there's a lot. So I'm not going to talk about it a lot because otherwise we'll never get through this past hour. Wanted to thank my company, This.Labs, for sponsoring and the amazing team for putting everything together. Yeah, it's great to have everybody do that. We get to work with some really amazing clients. We're a framework agnostic consultancy. If you're interested in doing amazing things with us, feel free to email me. I respond to the jobs@this.co email. One day I will give it up, but probably never. But come work with us. Yeah, we're 100% remote and worldwide, and it's a fun company. Okay. We have a lot of really amazing events coming up. One of the things I'm really excited about is the Women in Tech monthly mentoring that we do every month, June 15th at 3 p.m. Eastern this time around. We also have View World Tour coming up, Angular Mentoring, which is a free mentoring session that happens every month as well. And then, a few other things, and also State of React Ecosystem. So if you are React curious, feel free to pop in about a month to State of React Ecosystem. There's a lot of really amazing people we'll be talking to there. My name is Tracy. I'm the CEO of a company called This.Labs. You can follow me on Twitter @LadyLeet. I always love chatting with people, so feel free to come hang out. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Nacho. Nacho, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure thing. Thank you, Tracy. Hi, everyone. My name is Nacho, and I'm a senior software engineer here at This.Labs. You can find me on Twitter at Nacho_DeBeasi. I believe I always change it, but I think that's the last one. So
gotta stop changing it. We'll never be able to find you.
Yeah, I have to stop that.
We are joined by a bunch of really amazing panelists today. Ben Lesh, RxJs core team, Mike, hi Mike, co-creator of NgRx, Shmuela for lovely ngGirls, Erik, who, if you all don't know, the NgXP.show, Liam from Ionic, Lars, who's going to be, wait, is Lars here? Did I see Lars?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there. Okay, I was like, wait a second. Lars is joining us as well. Santosh is joining us too. We have Juri from NX, and then we have Jordan from Cyprus. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. Cool. Thanks, Erik. I'm just looking at your face. Everybody who's nodding yes or no, I'll just, I just trust you. I trust you.
For the positive reinforcement, Tracy.
Thank you. Everybody who does events knows positive reinforcement is well loved. Okay, well, let's go ahead and hop right into it. We have a lot of really amazing questions we need to ask. And for those of you who are on the live stream on YouTube, feel free to post where you're calling in from. And then if you have any additional questions for folks here, we'd love to hear it. Wanted to start off with Mike talking about NgRx. So NgRx, like what can we look forward to in the coming months?
Yeah, so the NgRx team right now is in the beta cycle for NgRx 14. So it'll be the version that will kind of officially support or adopt some of the new things that are coming out in Angular 14. And it's overall kind of a release that I'm fairly excited about. There's a lot going on both in terms of the store package and the NgRx component package that I wanted to highlight real quick. So for store, we're making things a little bit easier in terms of the amount of code you have to write. We're always looking to reduce the overall code count that it takes to implement NgRx store as your state management pattern. And in this release, there's a new create action group function that I'm really excited about. It's going to simplify the code that it takes to actually create a group of actions for NgRx store. So it's leveraging a lot of new advanced typing in Typescript that's available to us now as library authors so that you can write actions a lot more efficiently. Another improvement to the store that I'm quite excited about is when you install or add NgRx store, we're going to go ahead and add NgRx ESLint plugin automatically for you. Configure that as part of the installation. So this is a library or a set of ESLint rules that's maintained by Tim DeShriver. He's on the NgRx team, and it just enforces a lot of really great best practices for you. So now when you install NgRx store, you're going to get a lot of those best practices out of the box as part of that. Beyond store, there's a lot of improvements coming to NgRx component. So this is still kind of like a project that is looking towards the future of Angular in terms of ways to build more reactive components using observables, and it's separate from NgRx store. So if you think of NgRx as a state management library, NgRx components completely separate. You don't need to use the two together. They just play really nicely together if you choose to do that. And so there's a lot of improvements coming there in terms of strengthening the type checking and templates, giving you more control over error handling, improving the performance when you don't have Zone.js, and enhancements like that. So if you've not checked it out yet, NgRx 14 beta 0 is available. So please go install it, try it out in your projects, give it a spin, make sure it's working, and please report back to the team if you find any bugs with it so we can get through this beta cycle as quickly as possible.
That sounds amazing. And continue with the N libraries. We are going to ask for NX, Juri. We are always expecting wonderful things from NX, and we are actually using the release candidate for 14.2 in wonderful open source library. What else can you tell us about what is coming from NX in the future?
Yeah, sure. So we actually are about to release 14.2 stable. So we're currently finalizing the last bits there. Obviously, it comes with Angular 14 support this time. Like for those that don't know, NX and Angular kind of we decoupled basically the major versions. So NX 14 was released a couple weeks ago, 3-4 weeks already. And now 14.2 as a minor release, basically a feature release, now includes also the migrations for Angular 14. Comes with the stuff that you would expect, like upgrades, automatic migrations that already come with Angular, right? So we just trigger those. Plus, we add our additional ones for things that are custom within NX, right? So it comes also with Typescript 4.7. We upgraded Prettier, Storybook 6.5 support, and a couple of other enhancements basically just around the CLI. And obviously also a whole set of integrations in general, like with the tool providers. Like for instance, Storybook 6.5, like we kind of see ourselves as the connector to all those open source projects and our community parts in the Angular ecosystem, not only actually also React ecosystem. So for instance, like we have already like prepared some migrations for Cypress, which is has also launched basically last week. I have a hard time keeping up with all the releases recently. So we have already some basically opt-in migrations there in place that help you migrate over to the next version, so you're not left behind. Same for Storybook and some more optimizations basically along those ways.
That sounds great. And something that I had been curious about NX is now we know that Nrwl is now maintaining also Lerna. So what does that mean for NX? How do those similar tools work together and live together for now?
For NX users, it doesn't change a whole lot. So I think the positive impact overall, if at all, on like just viewing it from an NX perspective, is that NX gets a lot simpler. For instance, one feature that we just released and packed into 14.2 is optional NX.json. So basically, we keep reducing our configuration as much as possible to the point where right now it really just like needs installing an NX package. And then you can already use the task scheduling that NX comes with. Now, in terms of comparing it to the Lerna story, NX was always able to integrate with Lerna directly by just like using the Lerna bootstrapping and publishing features, but then swapping, like using NX for the actual task scheduling part, right? Just to speed up Lerna, because that was one of the main pain points we have heard. And so we were happy to have the opportunity to take over the stewardship of that project because it was already kind of dead since a couple of years. It has become more official since like, I think a month ago, more or less, when someone updated the main README, right? And so we took over and kind of just like want to help the Lerna community basically continue evolving, right? In the sense that we already released like a security patch support, like we released version 5, which deprecates a couple old packages, removes old Node version supports, and in general also the dev experience within the package. And in version 5.1, we also add very easy opt-in for NX. So now you don't even have to install NX. You have to install NX, but you don't have to manually configure it and switch over to the NX specific commands. But rather you can just tell learner, well, use NX underneath as an additional package. And so you can still keep all the learner commands and have, however, a fast repository again, right? So that is the main goal. And for the future, we have released a small roadmap there. So on the learner repository, so you can check that out. And we're kind of evolving that as well, right? So we have just taken over since a couple of weeks. So we're still figuring out some of the things. But there's much more exciting stuff to come for sure.
That's amazing. I'm like, is NX going to start a foundation now? You can just
almost.
collect all the libraries. No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all you all do for the open source community. It's not an easy job for sure. Jordan. So Jordan, the release of Cypress 10 just happened. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So, what should Angular developers and, developers generally be excited about for the new release?
Sure. So Juri sort of actually, he kind of segued into this accidentally, but yeah, our 10.0 is probably Cypress's historically our biggest release ever. Essentially, out of the box, it comes with two main things. One is we add support for component testing. So component testing for basically React and Vue out of the box. I'll get to the Angular stuff later, but basically we add support for component testing. And as a part of that work is we wanted to create, we had like essentially kind of like alpha kind of experimental support for this in the past, but it was very like a separate workflow. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do is make the experience for developers using Cypress and for component testing and or N10 more unified. So we actually, as a part of the 10.0 release, is a brand new UI that not only looks much better, but also it also has a unit. We call it unification. So basically unifies your experience between N10 testing and component testing. So it's all in one runner. Historically, one of the things like, Cypress, the design it released and like the design like never changed. And so like you would open a spec to run like an N10 test. And then it's like when it ran, then you'd have to like close out of it and then open up another spec. Well, now that whole process is kind of unified in the browser itself. So it makes testing much, running your tests, browsing for your specs, all those types of things, much simpler and just more fun to use. And, that's one of our mottos at Cypress is we want to make testing fun, and so that was one of the things that before I came to Cypress, well, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is like no one likes testing, but it's like the first time I was like, yeah, I want to write tests for using Cypress. And so that's one of the two main things that 10.0 came. There was because of it was a pretty major change. There's a change to our configuration. So before you had a Cypress.json file, but now we're using like a config.js or TS file. And but we do a migration. So if you hopefully want to upgrade to the newest version of Cypress, version 10, we walk you through every step it takes to migrate your project. So that process, we've got really great feedback saying that that's been as painless as possible, which was our goal. So yeah.
That's amazing. And then of course, Angular component testing in Cypress is very highly anticipated. So when should we expect maybe like a stable version of this, or like how do we sneak peek into it and its progress?
Sure. So I don't know if I can share a date, but I will say there is a date that we have, which tells you that, it is scoped work. But I would say definitely keep an eye out for it. Actually, I actually built it. And so it's going to be merging into the main Cypress project soonish. And we're just now like getting our heads above water after releasing 10, so we can starting to get back into some of our normal cycles and processes. So I can't give you an exact date, but I do promise that I will make sure it gets out the door as quick as possible. And I do have a if you want to test it out now, I have a beta that I personally built, the one that we're basically going to be modeling it after. I can share a link in the chat for that if anyone wants to try it, give feedback, that kind of thing. But yeah, for the most part, it's still it's coming, but it's I can't give an exact date yet. So.
Well, we're super excited about that. And yeah, definitely feel free to post it in chat. You might have to post it for me and I might have to repost it, but yeah, definitely
Okay.
we'd love to see that.
Yeah, I for one want to take a look at that. Leon, I want to get back to you now because years pass and Ionic continues to be one of the favorite choices for Angular. We use it at this dot. We use Capacitor for using for creating hybrid apps with Angular. So could you tell us a bit more about what is going on, what is being built there, what is happening?
Absolutely, yeah. So a few weeks ago, we actually had our online conference, IonicConf. It's a global conference for the Ionic community and also web developers who are building mobile apps. So if that's something that's interested to you, definitely check it out. IonicConf 2022, totally free. We had a bunch of panelists show off really cool examples, talk about a lot of really great topics. One of the things that came up during a panel that I actually didn't know about, and I'm the lead on Ionic Framework, and I didn't know about this, but Ionic and Angular actually power about 10% of all apps on the iOS App Store and about 20% of Google Play apps on the Google Play App Store, which is pretty cool. So that was really, really interesting to hear. We also recently released Ionic 6.1, so that a bunch of improvements to UI components such as the sheet modal, date time, and even more. We got our first look at the component playground. So we've been doing a lot of documentation work. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we heard from the community was that, it's a little bit tedious or cumbersome to really play with components and see how they're supposed to look and feel. And so this new component playground feature that we're releasing on our docs website soon is going to show you exactly what each UI component looks like right from your browser. So you can interact with it. You can switch between iOS mode, material design mode, light and dark mode. You can play with it right in your browser. You can get framework specific code. So you can get, how do I write this component in Angular? How do I write this in Vue? And one of my favorite features is that with a click of a button, you can actually open up that example in StackBlitz. So you can take, say, like a calendar picker example, click a StackBlitz button. It'll open up the exact example in StackBlitz. You can start playing with it right in your browser. So no need to start up an Ionic app, no need to copy and paste some random code. It's all done right there for you. So we're getting pretty close to releasing it. Probably within the next few weeks, we're thinking of doing a soft launch and then doing a formal announcement later. So definitely keep an eye out for that. On the capacitor side, we announced a native Google Maps plugin. That was probably one of the top requested features from the community, is being able to have a native Maps plugin. So that's available now. Definitely give that a check out and let us know if you run into any issues or any features you want to see. And then finally, I think most relevant to this conversation is that we are going to be shipping an update to Ionic Angular tomorrow, sometime this week. We're feeling pretty good about tomorrow, but it should be this week. And in that release, we will have full support for the new Angular 14, which is pretty good. So very, very excited about that, and definitely keep a lookout to get Angular 14 support in your apps.
That is amazing. So many exciting things happening in the Angular community. I definitely have been seeing like a lot of buzz starting to pick up on Twitter. So love to see that. And Shmuela, one of my favorites, is here as well. For those of you who don't know, ngGirls is like one of the most amazing initiatives to come out of Angular. Shmuela, maybe tell us a little bit about ngGirls and then just talk to us about what's next for ngGirls this year.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah? Okay, awesome. That's great. First of all, I want to say I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me on this panel. And I'm really excited about all of the news that I've been hearing until now. This is wonderful. So about ngGirls, we do free workshops for women. Usually they're full day workshops with the help of mentors. And the purpose is to learn Angular. So we have a tutorial. We also do a frontal session, just giving the fundamentals of Angular. And by the end of the day, the women who participate have a full front-end Angular application. We do the to-do list because it has all the necessary features. We teach them how to use components and communication between components with inputs and outputs and services. And it's really amazing to see how the women come out of this, this full day workshop, and they get so inspired and so excited to take their own ideas and just implement them within the to-do list app or whatever else idea that they have. So we've been doing this since 2016. Of course, it used to be a lot in person, and of course we had a bit of slowdown in the past 2 years, but we're coming back to working on it full power.
That's truly inspiring. I have to say that I have been following and all your publication on Twitter and following the project and seeing all the feedback that you're getting and what people are getting from it is truly something that is very motivating. And talking a bit about this motivational initiative, we also have here Santosh and Lars to talk about a similar perspective, which is this is Angular, which is trying to bring a bit of free courses and lessons, but maybe we can hear more from them directly.
Yeah, unfortunately, Santosh doesn't have a stable internet connection. He just moved, so I think he left again because of unstable internet, right? But I'm here. Santosh and I founded this kind of non-profit organization called This Is Learning, and a big part of that is This Is Angular, which is all of our Angular focusing efforts. We have blogs that anyone can join on dev community, one called This Is Angular for Angular topics, and one called This Is Learning for everything else related to tech and career. And I think we have like 40 or 50 writers, and this organization, this effort is nothing without all the contributors. But more than writing, we also have open learning efforts. So that's free and open courses available to anyone, and they are also open to contributions. So right now we have an RxJs course written by about 10 different contributors from the community. So if you go to thisislearning.dev, you will find links to all of these things, and everything is free. It will always be free. There's no membership or anything. You should be able to Google it at some point when we get popular enough. Until then, go through our main channels like our website, our Twitter profiles. We also have an NgRx course for the NgRx store and effects. And most recently, we also finally published on a website This Is Angular guides. So those are open guides for Angular where everyone's welcome to contribute. It's a little less daunting than contributing to the official Angular documentation, but I assure you every contribution is welcome, no matter if it's small or big, and will help you if you having trouble with anything. But basically it's editing markdown files and opening a pull request. So those are the latest efforts. We also have newsletters and all kinds of things I'm forgetting, like the This Is Tech Talk show every week.
Did you say a This Is TikTok show?
This is Tech Talks. Yeah, it's live on YouTube every week.
Oh, Tech Talks. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying TikTok, and I was thinking, finally, the Angular community has joined TikTok. This is great. Okay, so not
yet.
Here is your chance. Yeah.
I will if you will.
Tech Talks on TikTok would be amazing. So definitely still have a few questions for you, Lars, but circling back to Shmuela. Shmuela, do you have any other announcements for us?
Yeah, certainly. So regarding ngGirls workshops, we're now working on making it easier using a system and workflow to organize in-person ngGirls workshops without us having to be there, without the team being there. So we're creating this whole system and flow to help you do that. But another thing that I'm working on, I've just launched a new cohort course, which takes this one step further, but also backwards. So it's a 4 weeks course, where the first week is web development fundamentals, which is HTML, CSS, and how the web works. Then we learn Angular, and then we supplement it with some backend services. So we need serverless logic and database, all to make a full-featured application. So you can deploy and share with your family, friends, and the whole world. So this is meant to be also targeting the same audience of ngGirls, which is mostly women who have some experience in technology, maybe students in IT, or working in QA or something like that. So have already some knowledge about the technology, but don't know a lot about web development. And it's not going to be like a full drill down course into Angular or any other of the topics that we have, just a taste of everything, just enough to get you started and have a real application going on, a beautiful application without needing to be a designer, because like, you know, we have component libraries like material, Angular material, which is awesome. So basically it's the way that I use the stack that I use to build my own little application. And during this course, you can take your own idea, and I will review it personally. I will review the idea, the process, the code, everything during 4 or 5 weeks, actually. It starts in July. And we'll have a cohort of a group of 10 women participating, but everyone else can also just take the course with just regular meeting with the whole course and with me also occasionally. So I'm really excited about that. I'm still working on it, and it's amazing.
Is it on ngGirls? Can you find it on ngGirls, or what's the website to join this?
You can't find it yet. I'm just working on this landing page and everything, but I'm going to tweet about it right now. I'm going to tweet the initial URL, which is not even on my own domain. I've been working on it a lot lately, and with a lot of things going on at home, this is the best that I could do, and I'm really excited to be launching it live here with on this panel. This is like super amazing for me. So I'm just doing it quickly, and you're gonna find the tweet in just a few minutes.
Oh, we're very excited. Cool.
On my Twitter, yeah.
Thank
you. This is so amazing. And this is going to be meant to be online, or is going to be kind of more online and also a bit in present? How is the format here a bit?
It's going to be online, fully online. The meetings are going to be in my time zone, so it's like friendly for Europeans, because it's going to be in the morning of Europe. But also anyone else can just take the course and watch the recordings. So it's fully online. It's convenient for everyone, for myself, and but still I want to make it a very engaging experience, and give a lot of confidence to the participants to just start working by yourselves, to implement your own ideas, to even research other technologies and other frameworks. Because once you start with Angular, you kind of have the confidence to do anything, right?
For sure.
In the world.
Well, we are definitely excited and waiting for that announcement. So that will be definitely awesome. And now we're going to roll back again to Lars. And Lars, you are a prolific library author as well, as aside of this is learning and this is Angular. And recently we have been working even together a bit, but I want to hear your perspective about what means these new changes that are coming from Angular for the library author.
Yeah, so some of the big news for library maintainers is, well, if you're not on the partial Ivy compilation yet, you should definitely get your libraries there. It's the final, or the kind of recent format has been available since Angular 12.2, and now we're on 14.0. And at some point, the Angular compatibility compiler is going to be removed, and then no one will be able to use your library with new versions of Angular. So it's about time to migrate. I don't know the exact migration plan, but in probably some major version of Angular, right? Sometime within reasonable time, Angular, the NGCC Angular compatibility compiler is going to be removed. And other big news, well, I was very excited to see not only standalone components currently in developer preview, but also the related standalone APIs. Because even in libraries that we work on together, Nacho and NG workers like Lumberjack, which has nothing to do with UI and everything to do with services. It's a logging library, right? These new standalone APIs gives us an opportunity to provide configuration functions so that they can be used without all these ng modules, because we have a lot of ng modules, even though we have no components in the entire library, but just for configuring your application, it's a highly configurable library. So we have a bunch of ng modules just for configuring the providers in your application. So this is something we're going to look into. See a lot of excitement about this inject function finally being available in constructors and property initializers. So that also opens up the opportunity to try out new patterns and figure out what's a good pattern for libraries in Angular.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely going to be a challenge and an opportunity to learn the new APIs for library author, right? But we need to now adjust to the new era of Angular, which I think is going to be for the best. It's going to be great. And talking about a bit of all these anticipated features that are coming for Angular, Erik, do you mind to kind of bring us your perspective from the community and a user of these tools? How awesome is this? How useful is going to be for the day-to-day Angular developer to use this tool, and a bit of the impact for the community?
Absolutely. Wait, is this thing on? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We did our sound check. All right. Well, Angular 14 is coming with a feature that we're all really excited for, and really fun, awesome dude named Brandon Roberts likes to joke about this, and I don't think he's fully joking, but there's not really a great name for it. But we call it standalone components. But it's not just components, it's also standalone pipes and directives. And so, well, how is the community feeling? I can't really speak for the whole community, but I definitely have heard some things from my colleagues at Cisco and outside previous workplaces and just in the community. There's a lot of buzz around this, and rightly so. So I'm going to come at this from a few different angles of the kind of developers that I know personally. There you go, standalone PDC, I like that. Pipes, directives, components, branded by Tracy right here. Angular team, I think you can take that. She'll probably give it to you. All right, so the few different people that I'm coming from these are sort of archetypes of people. So you've got your Angular devs who've been doing Angular for a while, or at least long enough, they're doing it professionally. And so some of these people are just going to be straight up, so what? I'm used to modules. I don't mind modules. I kind of like modules. And that's okay. I'm partially in that camp. I'm partially in this other camp as well. interesting. I can't wait to give it a try. Let's see what this is going to do. It's a little bit hard when somebody changes something this like integral to open source, to a library, when this is a framework. So it even has bigger implications. So when you change something so fundamental to the way that we do Angular, it's gonna have a ripple effect, and we're not exactly sure all of the things that this is going to affect, but it's going to affect a lot of things. These kind of folks are going to be early adopters, and I hope to be among them. Speaking of which, there's Ben Lesh. He's an early adopter at some things. All right, and the next one is going to be the kind of folks who are like architecting and leading the teams. And these people are in charge of not just what their personal preferences and opinions are, but what the business needs, and also what new team members are going to face, and also as this thing scales, how easy is this going to be to scale? So I think that people are really excited about this because there's going to be less unnecessary modules. But at the same time, I think there is some skepticism, not skepticism, but more hesitation, because now there's going to be two competing patterns here. There's going to be, and there already were a few different competing patterns. So as an architect, you try to keep these things limited, right? So we had the scam pattern, right, which was a module for every component, and we have, folks doing smart and pure components kind of thing. And now we're going to have folks without modules in their components. And that's a good thing, but we're going to have to maintain what we've got. So a lot of, especially enterprise level things, but just large applications that you've built, you're not going to go through very quickly, at least, and refactor everything. So for a while, we're going to have to put up with multiple patterns here. But again, that's okay. It's going to win us a lot in the long run. So hang in there. And I know that most architects and leads are pretty excited, the ones that I've talked to about this as well. So, and then last couple folks are extremely important. I almost feel like they're central to this. You have your folks who come from a different framework or a different library, such as React or Vue, Svelte. There's so many great ones out there. Well, these folks they look at Angular and they've already sort of made up their mind. There's a reputation around Angular a lot of times of, wow, why would you want so many files for every component? Components should just be simple. And I can't disagree with that. And the Angular team doesn't disagree with that either. And that's why they worked so hard to make this possible, I'm pretty sure. So we have no modules is going to make it a lot more appealing to folks who've looked at Angular and they're like, I'm not sure, I don't really like this pattern. And they can really focus on what it means to be in an opinionated framework. And that can have really amazing side effects that I won't go into right now. But if anybody has questions about that, I can tell you about what the benefits of being in the opinionated ecosystem of Angular is like. And then the most important folks are the new folks, people getting into development for the first time. A lot of people say, Angular, don't start with Angular. Don't start with Angular. I've heard that so many times. I'm sure you all have. But now maybe you can start with Angular, right? Because there's just one less hill to climb. And this hill can be kind of large. What the heck is a module? I'm already teaching folks and I mentor people. I take about one person per year for just one-on-one mentoring. And getting people through HTML and CSS and JavaScript, that's a lot. Get to Angular, because you're going to need a framework in order to get that first job for the most part these days. And having to not deal with modules is going to just increase people's time to get into the job and decrease the things that might confuse people and make them lose heart and give up entirely, because that happens, sadly. Well, and Shmuela over there is smiling. She probably sees this pattern over and over and over again. And anyway, I'm grateful to everybody on this call. Thank you for letting me speak for a little bit. These are my opinions. I'm really excited about the standalone components, directives, and pipes.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. And, loved that you were sharing all these different perspectives from folks as well. The last update we have before we kind of move on to free questions is Ben, what is the latest release of RxJs? What's new? What's next? What's going on?
All right. So the latest RxJS is now in like 7.5 world. And if you haven't updated to 7.5 or the latest version, but you are in 7, I highly recommend updating as soon as possible, because in 7.54, there were performance improvements that literally like an order of magnitude faster in most cases for RxJs, and no size added or anything. So that's super important. Basically, that what it boiled down to is there was some very, very hot path code inside of our safe subscribers, which are the subscribers that we use to wrap the observers or whatever functions you provide to your subscribe calls, that we're using function bind. And Kyle Simpson, people know him as Getifier, the you don't know JS guy or whatever. He had an issue with Monio, that one of his libraries, where he was patching function bind there, and we needed to change that to prevent that from being an issue. And I started looking at the code, and I was like, wait, this could be a lot faster. So I, did some regular kind of class-based trickery to remove some closures and remove the function bind. And it's seriously, it's like 25 times faster in a lot of cases. So if you get a chance to update to at least 5.4, I think the latest version is 5.5, I recommend it. Other things, 7.5 added a new feature that basically already existed in Retry. So it's got Retry and Repeat now are totally configurable. So you can use them in lieu of Retry when and Repeat when, and we're probably going to deprecate and remove those over in a couple major versions because they're more confusing, to where you can actually go in and you can configure it to say delay, and then you give it a function that returns an observable or returns a promise or whatever you want it to return. And you can, instead of having to do this, retry when and get a stream of errors and then switch map it and do all this other stuff, like it skips that step. So you don't have to do that. And the nice thing is you end up with the ability to have like a retry when that can have like this internal resettable states, or can reset the count and things like that. So Repeat got the same feature added in 7.5, and that was why we incremented a minor version. So recommend checking those out, using those. Otherwise, we have a new core team member named Mladen, and Mladen has been doing a lot of work trying to make our docs better. So in recent months, we've published a few improvements to the documentation site. It's still built off of a fork of Angular's documentation. Love it or hate it, it was never designed specifically for RxJs, but it seems to serve the purposes, and it's getting better. There's some talk about maybe if we get time, but it's all volunteer work, so probably not, trying to make something that's more catered specifically to RxJs. But so that's another big thing, is we have a new core team member. Otherwise, there's not a ton of stuff going on. I've started publishing alpha versions of version 8. But they're very alpha, though. Some of the work that I've got coming up that I really am excited about is we want to move everything over to use like NX monorepository for our documentation site and for the build of main RxJS. And then the main RxJS library, we want to break it out into smaller packages that are, so we're still gonna have the main library. That's not ever going to go away. RxJS, the package, will continue to exist, but it will probably import and re-export these smaller namespace libraries. So it'll be like at RxJS/observable, because we want to, especially with observable, we want to be able to publish just the observable and the pieces you need to use only observable separately, because we found that it's a weird barrier to entry for some libraries that are like, well, RxJS is heavy and I don't want to have heavy stuff, and they don't quite understand the whole tree shaking thing, or maybe it's that they don't want to have the operators even be available to people. They just want to be like, I just want to use observable, and I don't want people like starting to use exhaust map or whatever, which is totally understandable. So we want to be able to publish just observable on its own, and hopefully that helps, kind of push that type and get more people involved in it. I just did a talk at at Render in Atlanta. And my talk there was not about RxJS. It was specifically about the observable type. Just so people are aware, like if you look in, it's funny, not in Angular. If you look in Angular, Angular uses RxJS as observable. So they didn't reinvent observable for Angular. They already had them. But if you look in like Svelte or Vue, there are observables in there that are reinvented observables that are the same exact shape as observables, just like with slightly different names or a little bit tweaky different shapes. So you've got Svelte, Vue, React Router has an internal observable that Ryan Florin's pointing me towards. You've got, of course, Redux has like an internal observable implementation of a sort. MobX, XState, all of these things have built-in observable shape stuff. And so I want to try to get this observable library out on its own, try to get people to kind of unify on using the same shaped observable so people don't keep shipping the same ones over and over again. And then if I don't even know if I could ever do this, but try to get the TC39 to pay attention to what's going on in the world. So maybe we can get some observables actually in the language. And then related to getting observables in the language and native stuff, there's been some work recently by Benedict Moore and friends on the Chrome DevTools team to try to add additional debugging tooling that can be used in RxJS to try to make the debugging story a little bit better. I would argue that if they just added observables native to the language, they wouldn't need this, but it's there. There's going to be some difficulties, right? Because if we have these things, they would need to not just be in Chrome, they would also need to be in Node, because the majority of people using RxJS, in fact, are using it in Node. So we need to have the APIs in both places to really be able to move to that. But it is kind of an exciting development. I tweeted about it the other day. It's basically is a way to kind of track an async context for each call through the stack or whatever. So at the very least, there'll be tools that we might be able to point people towards to help them debug certain things, or maybe even in an additive way in the short term. Longer term, of course, the web's a big slow moving thing. We have to wait for Node. We have to wait for other platforms to catch up because RxJS is just so broadly used.
Yeah, and there's a great, also just for those of you all following along with version 7 and to version 8, the roadmap, there's an issue which I'll post actually in the chat. It's issue number 6367. So y'all can follow along in that. And this is a great way to, potentially help from a contribution standpoint to get more involved. So thank you so much, Ben, for that update. I love to see RxJS kind of like still pushing the boundaries and going into other frameworks and libraries. Cool. So, for the last few minutes, we're basically going to kind of do open conversation. So love to hear from all of you all. I would love to actually go to 2 questions in the chat. What do you all think of Angular using other languages like Rescript versus Typescript? Yes, no, don't even have that conversation.
I do all my Angular development in assembly directly. So no, I don't. I mean, I would at this point, and I know it's horrible to say, but I feel like developing in anything other than TypeScript is a bit of a risk unless your whole team is very good at whatever this other language is. Like, I mean, there's probably arguments to be made. If you have a whole team that's like, oh, they're all experts in Rescript, and Rescript has X features that make this better for us. Yeah, like, sure, why not? But, trying to sell that to the external world, I think it's going to be a tough.
Yeah, I personally also like the uniformity that has come across different frameworks, right? So before, like if you switched over like to some other language or stuff, like you saw CoffeeScript in there, which was like, oh gosh, like now I have to kind of parse through the CoffeeScript code, which you might not be using on a daily basis. And also now, it seems like from an NX perspective, we now only just cover Angular, but also React community and Node and stuff. And you see more and more TypeScript popping up or having that as default. And I think that's quite a good thing, right? It's much easier to transition between frameworks even as well.
Juri, there was a question which I didn't see your answer on in YouTube, which is when it's from Lars. When is official Cypress 10 support coming to NX? Did you answer that?
I
so.
think it. Yeah, it. No, I don't think I went into the. I did not dive into the details for that. But like in the 14.2 release, the migrations are already in there. So we already kind of worked very closely with Jordan on that. I made sure it is ready when Cypress V10 is out. I think like the team is still doing some last testings. I cannot give the last details because I'm basically in vacation already still now. So I didn't catch up like on the latest release stuff, but it should be in there in the 14.2. So should be going out with that. But there's a blog post coming, which I still need to prepare for tomorrow-ish with all the details.
Love that. Thank you.
I do have a question for Mike Ryan. So I'm very interested because we faced something similar challenge now migrating to Angular 14 from Lumberjack when initializing our modules, right? So are there any plans on our side to start using the inject and maybe get rid of modules for root and for child configuration for effects and the store?
Yeah, so I think the NgRx team is really quite excited about the inject function in particular, because there's a lot of opportunity to simplify how you might interact with NgRx store, especially. For example, we might be able to make it a lot easier to use selectors by doing something like an inject selector. So there's a lot of conversation around this. There's nothing planned. There's no formal design documents at this point, but it's something that I know Brandon in particular, Brandon Roberts, is really excited about and starting a lot of conversations towards. So that's a conversation you want to get involved in. Please join the NgRx Discord. We'd love to have your input. I think there's a lot of prototypes flying around. In the short term, yes, we'll probably remove the modules for it, or at least provide alternatives to the modules in a future version of NgRx, so that you might be able to use things like NgX store and NgX effects without ng modules. So I probably look forward to that in a future release.
Amazing. I was thinking about kind of all the amazing projects like Shmuela and Lars and Santosh and all these like just learning projects that are happening. We also have one that we haven't really released yet, but if you go to starter.dev, you'll see one of them. We actually worked with Minko from the Angular team on releasing one of these starter kits. Nacho, do you want to talk about it or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think you're going to do a better job than I have been using it, looking at it. I love it, but I haven't been so familiar with it. So maybe you can introduce it.
Of course. Yeah. So starter.dev, you can check it out. It's basically going to be a bunch of different starter kits to allow you to figure out, what architecture of different technologies looks like. And what we do is we build these GitHub clones. So the Angular one is, there's going to be a few Angular ones, but one of them that's up there right now is Angular, Tailwind, and Apollo and how to use it. So if you're a beginner kind of looking for best practices on how to use these technologies together, definitely check it out. There's also showcases for it. Also great for generally like architects or senior engineers who kind of need this. Also, it's really easy to just like use if you're like sick of configuring things. Feel free to use these starter kits. We're starting to do it internally because the boilerplate of setting up is kind of annoying. So yeah, shameless plug there. What other comments and things do people kind of want to chat about? We just have a few more minutes, so kind of wrapping up and closing.
I have one thing maybe to plug, which we have also been working on 14.2, which is like what we are trying to currently help with is for Angular folks to use NX much more easily. Because like a lot of folks like think about NX always like just for the big monorepo stories, right? But you can actually build very, very nicely also single app repos, right? And start with that. And so what we did recently, and that went into 14.2, is we improved the migration support. So whenever you want to migrate from an Angular CLI, there's now a very easy way to just like add the Nrwl Angular package, and that will then basically help you migrate over not just like single project-based applications, but now also multi-project-based applications, which you could have like in Angular CLI as well, right? Again, like there's the blog post will go much more into the details of how to achieve that. But I highly recommend folks like try it out. It's not just for huge monorepos. We can work very well with those, obviously, but like it's also very, very interesting for small apps which you start and then you expand in the future.
Thank you for that.
Lars, do you want to bring something?
Yeah, I wanted to add to the learning in this ecosystem. This is a personal project of mine, but I'm writing another book. This one is going to be free forever. It's for Angular developers who want to learn NX. So I want to give back to the Angular community, the NX community. I see a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, and how do I get started to NX and what's in it for me? I have the Angular CLI, why would I need another CLI, things like that. So it intends to cover everything you need to get going as an Angular developer to use NX, from using the CLI, creating a new workspace, what's similar to Angular CLI, what's different, what's more, what does NX have more than Angular CLI, and how to structure an app in a conventional way and based on NX conventions. So you can find it on LeanPub. The first few chapters are available. It's free. I would love your feedback on what's already there and what you'd like to see.
That's amazing. Thank you. Shmuela, did you make the tweet yet?
Yes, I did. You have the landing page. It's still missing a lot of information, but you can click on the link and see it. I want to say I'm really excited about everything I'm hearing here, and like what Lars just said. All the resources that are available for Angular developers, especially those that are for free. I started out a new newsletter for the ngGirls community, and I'm going to send them all the links to that, and also open a resource page on our website to make it easier for our community members to find all these things. So thank you so much, Lars, for this book. I know that I've had some rough time understanding NX. I know it's simple, but still, you need a guide, a good guide to do that. So I am definitely going to check out your book and give you some feedback. I'm sure it's going to be awesome and the community will love it. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, I love that. And, everybody here is very active on Twitter. So definitely look folks up and don't stop the conversation here. Thank you so much for everybody who has been chatting in the chat. It's been really fun talking to everybody, and it's exciting to see all the amazing things happening in the Angular ecosystem. So thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you all soon.